Summary. You don't have to rush, you know, Mumbo said, his voice warm and teasing. Ren shot him a look, his lips curling into a mock snarl. I'm not rushing. This thing just... He tugged at the corset again, growling when the laces refused to budge. Won't come off. Ren vaguely recalled a time when the weight of a collar didn't bear down on his neck, when the soft fur of his throat was untouched by the metal or leather that marked ownership. Those memories were faint, fleeting whispers of a distant past, swallowed by the life he'd lived since then. He knew that weight intimately, the sense of being bound, of being owned. The scars around his neck told their own stories, pale lines cutting through his fur like echoes of an older pain, remnants of chains that had held him captive when he was still just a pup. Ren thought he'd moved past it, shed that burden with the collar, and with it the parts of his life that had shackled him. And yet, now he stood here, staring at Mumbo as he fastened a collar around his own neck. Mumbo's movements were deliberate, almost ritualistic, as he adjusted the band snugly against his throat. It wasn't the rough, sharp metal thing Ren had once worn. It was sleek and elegant, a leather strap with a polished golden clasp that gleamed in the soft light of their shared den. Ren's ears twitched back in confusion, his golden eyes narrowing. Why? The word came out as a low rumble, not quite a growl, but heavy with uncertainty. Mumbo tilted his head, his crimson eyes glimmering with that peculiar light Ren had never fully understood. There was no hesitation in his smile, that all too familiar fanged grin that seemed to come so naturally to him, as if baring his teeth was a language Ren still struggled to decipher. What do you mean, why? Mumbo asked, his voice light, almost teasing but not dismissive. You're not, Ren faltered, his claws flexing into the earth beneath his feet as he searched for the right words. You're not owned. No one controls you. I don't control you. Mumbo chuckled, a soft sound that somehow only added to Ren's unease. The werewolf's tail flicked involuntarily, a habit that betrayed his restless thoughts. Of course not, Mumbo said, his hands lingering on the collar as if testing its fit. This isn't about ownership. Then why? Ren pressed. His gaze flicked to the scars on Mumbo's own neck, faded but still visible if you looked close enough, thin lines that spoke of some past hurt Mumbo had never fully explained. Ren hadn't pried. He knew better than anyone how painful it could be to reopen those wounds. But now, seeing this, it felt like those wounds were being reopened all the same. Mumbo stepped closer, closing the distance between them until Ren could feel the faint warmth radiating from his partner's skin. His smile softened, though the glint of his fangs never truly disappeared. It's not about what it was for you or what it might mean to someone else, Mumbo said, his voice quiet but steady. It's about what it means to me. Ren's ears perked forward slightly, his brow furrowing. I don't understand, he admitted, his voice dipping lower. Mumbo reached out, his fingers brushing lightly over the scarred skin beneath Ren's fur. The touch was gentle, almost reverent, and it made something deep in Ren's chest ache. This, Mumbo said, tapping his collar with one hand while his other lingered on Ren's neck, isn't about submission or control. It's about choice. My choice. I'm not wearing it because someone put it on me. I'm wearing it because I want to, because it reminds me of who I am. Of who I want to be. Ron blinked, his heart skipping a beat as Mumbo's fingers traced the edges of one of his old scars. You hated yours, Mumbo continued softly, his eyes meeting Ren's with a clarity that left the werewolf momentarily breathless. I know that. It hurt you. Took something from you. But this isn't taking anything from me. It's giving me something instead. What? Ren whispered, his voice rough with the effort of keeping it steady. Mumbo's smile returned in full force, the sharp points of his teeth catching the light. Freedom, he said simply. Ren's tail wagged despite himself, the motion betraying the storm of emotions swirling within him. It didn't all make sense, not yet, but the sincerity in Mumbo's gaze was enough to still the questions clawing at the edges of his mind. And that smile was still enough to make his heart leap in his chest. For now he let it be. Ren's golden eyes remained fixed on the collar as if it were some enigma he couldn't quite unravel. The leather was smooth beneath his touch as he tentatively brought his clawed fingers to it. His pads pressed softly against the surface, and his claws trailed the edges with delicate precision. A low, involuntary growl rumbled in his chest, not of anger or discontent, but something deeper, more primal, something he wasn't sure how to name. Mumbo stayed perfectly still, crimson eyes alight with quiet amusement as he watched Ren's every movement. That familiar fang smile played on his lips again, but this time it was softer, less teasing, more affectionate. Ren's growl faltered, turning into a sigh as his fingers lingered on the golden clasp. "It's strange," he murmured, his voice low and rough like gravel but edged with vulnerability. "What is?" Mumbo asked, his tone gentle, as though coaxing an answer from a skittish animal. Ren's claws tapped lightly against the collar, and his eyes flicked up to meet Mumbo's. "I hated mine. Loathed it. Felt like it stole everything I was. Seeing you wear one by choice," he trailed off, his ears flattening slightly. "It confuses you," Mumbo finished for him, his smile widening just a touch. Ren gave a small, reluctant nod, his tail curling loosely around his legs as if trying to ground himself. Mumbo reached up, his fingers brushing through Ren's thick hair with a feather-light touch. Ren's breath hitched and his growl returned, softer this time, almost a purr. The werewolf leaned into the touch instinctively, closing his eyes for a brief moment as Mumbo's fingers traced soothing patterns through the coarse strands. "It's my choice, Ren," Mumbo said softly, his voice steady and reassuring. "No one's forcing me. No one's taking anything from me. This is mine." Ren opened his eyes again, meeting Mumbo's gaze. The clarity there was unshakable, a confidence that made something inside Ren soften. "But why?" Ren asked, his voice barely above a whisper, as if he was afraid of breaking the fragile peace between them. Mumbo hummed thoughtfully, his fingers continuing their gentle exploration of Ren's hair. "It reminds me of who I am," he said after a moment. "And who I'm not." Ren tilted his head slightly, silently urging him to continue. "I've been so many things, Ren," Mumbo said, his tone growing more introspective. "So many shapes, so many faces. It's easy to get lost in all that change, to forget where I end and the rest of the world begins." His fingers drifted down to trace the edge of Ren's jaw, and his smile turned wistful. "This helps me remember. Helps me stay grounded." Ren's claws paused in their tracing, his hand resting lightly against the collar. He frowned, not in disapproval but in thought. "I never thought of it like that," he admitted. "To me it was always something forced. A cage." "For you it was," Mumbo said gently, his thumb brushing against the edge of Ren's ear. "But this isn't a cage for me. It's an anchor, maybe. A reminder that no matter how much I change, I'm still me." Ren's growl turned into a low, contented hum as he leaned closer, his forehead resting against Mumbo's. "I guess I still don't fully get it," he murmured, his breath warm against Mumbo's skin. "That's okay," Mumbo replied, his voice soft and steady. "You don't have to." They stayed like that for a while, the world narrowing down to the quiet rhythm of their breathing and the warmth they shared. Ren's hand drifted up, his claws grazing the back of Mumbo's neck where the collar rested. The touch was careful, almost reverent, as if he were still coming to terms with the choice Mumbo had made. "You're sure?" Ren asked after a long silence, his voice barely audible. Mumbo chuckled, the sound vibrating softly against Ren's chest. "I'm sure," he said, his fingers threading through Ren's hair one last time before settling on his shoulder. "This is mine, Ren. It doesn't take anything from me. It gives me peace." Ren let out a deep sigh, his tension melting away as he pressed closer. His tail wagged lazily behind him, a steady rhythm of quiet contentment. "As long as you're happy," he murmured, his voice carrying the faintest edge of a growl. "I am," Mumbo assured him, his smile never wavering. Ren didn't fully understand it, not yet, but the truth in Mumbo's words was enough. For now he was content to stay here, in this moment, savoring the warmth of their shared space and the quiet certainty that whatever the collar meant to Mumbo, it was his and his alone. The air between them grew warmer, softer, as their breaths intertwined in the quiet of their shared den. Ren's claws continued their slow, deliberate tracing along the edges of Mumbo's collar, each movement careful and unhurried. The werewolf's golden eyes searched Mumbo's crimson ones, as if seeking answers he couldn't yet articulate. "You're so strange, you know," Ren murmured, his voice rough but tinged with something fond. Mumbo's smile widened, the sharp tips of his fangs peeking out. Strange? Coming from you? He teased, his tone light but his fingers never pausing as they brushed through Ren's hair, smoothing unruly strands with an almost reverent touch. Ren huffed, a sound that might have been a laugh if it weren't weighed down by the rumble of his chest. Fair. But still, I don't get how you're so calm about it all. About this. His claws tapped gently against the collar again. You're all change and fluidity. Everything I'm not. Mumbo tilted his head slightly, his hair catching the light in a way that made it seem as if it shimmered. And you're all instinct and permanence, he countered, his voice softening. We're not as different as you think, Ren. Ren snorted, his ears flicking back. We're two sides of the same coin at best. You're a shapeshifter. You can be anyone, anything. I'm just me, a wolf through and through. Mumbo's fingers paused for a moment, his smile shifting into something more thoughtful. You're more than that, he said quietly, his voice dipping into a gentler register. You're strength and loyalty. You're the ground beneath my feet when I feel like I'm about to float away. And I think you underestimate how much that means. Ren blinked, his ears perking forward slightly. He wasn't used to being spoken to like this, with words that felt like they might slip beneath his skin and nestle against the parts of him he tried to keep hidden. He started, but the words caught in his throat. Mumbo took his hesitation as an invitation to continue. His hand drifted from Ren's hair to cup the werewolf's cheek, his thumb brushing over the faint scar that ran along the edge of his jaw. And me? Mumbo asked, his voice a quiet murmur. Do you think I'm just what? A shifting shadow? A face that changes as easily as the wind? Ren's brows furrowed, his tail flicking once in protest. No, he growled softly, the sound low and protective. You're not just that. You're you. You're Mumbo. And you're Ren, Mumbo said, a gentle smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Just Ren. And that's enough for me. The tension in Ren's shoulders eased, and he leaned into Mumbo's touch, letting the smaller man guide him closer. You make it sound so simple, Ren murmured, his voice rough but quieter now, as if the space between them demanded a certain intimacy. Because it is, Mumbo replied, his tone light yet sincere. His fingers slid down, tracing the curve of Ren's jaw, then back up to brush against the base of his ear. You think too much sometimes, Dulcinea. Let yourself just be. Ren's growl softened into something that was almost a purr, a sound so rare that it made Mumbo's grin widen. The werewolf leaned forward, their foreheads pressing together as his hands found Mumbo's waist, claws flexing lightly against the fabric of his shirt. You're not afraid of me, Ren said after a moment, his voice barely above a whisper. Mumbo chuckled softly, his breath ghosting over Ren's lips. Why would I be? You've never hurt me. You couldn't even if you tried. Ren's golden eyes darkened, his claws tightening ever so slightly, though his touch remained careful. Don't underestimate me, Mumbo, he warned, though the edge in his voice was tempered by the way his tail wagged slowly behind him. Mumbo leaned in, his lips brushing against Ren's with the lightest touch, a tease more than a kiss. I never underestimate you, wolf boy, he said, his voice carrying that playful lilt Ren had come to love. The nickname drew a huff from Ren, but before he could retort, Mumbo closed the distance fully. The kiss was slow and deliberate, like a promise spoken in a language only they understood. Mumbo's delicate fingers tangled in Ren's hair, tugging lightly, while Ren's claws pressed into the small of his back, holding him steady. For a moment the world narrowed to just this, the warmth of their bodies pressed together, the faint taste of smoke and spice on Mumbo's lips, the quiet hum of contentment that seemed to radiate between them. When they finally pulled apart, Ren's cheeks were flushed beneath his fur, and Mumbo's crimson eyes sparkled with mischief. See, Mumbo said, his voice light but breathless. Not so different after all. Ren shook his head, a soft laugh rumbling in his chest. You're insufferable, he muttered, though the way his tail wagged betrayed the affection in his words. And you love it, Mumbo replied without missing a beat, his fanged smile brighter than ever. Ren sighed, his claws grazing lightly over the collar one last time. Yeah, he admitted, his voice low and gruff but undeniably warm. I really do. His tail swayed lazily behind him, the motion betraying his quiet delight despite his gruff demeanor. Mumbo stayed pressed close, his fingers still tangled in Ren's hair, a mischievous spark glimmering in his crimson eyes. "You're staring," Mumbo teased, his lips quirking into a grin that showed just a hint of his sharp teeth. Ren huffed, his ears twitching. "Hard not to," he replied, his voice low and warm. "You're hard to look away from, even when you're being annoying." Mumbo gasped dramatically, his hand flying to his chest as if Ren's words had physically struck him. "Annoying? Me? How dare you?" The werewolf rolled his eyes, but the fondness in his gaze softened the gesture. "Yes, you," Ren said, his claws resting lightly against the curve of Mumbo's waist. "You're insufferable. You've been insufferable since the day I met you." "And yet," Mumbo countered, stepping closer so that his body was flush against Ren's, "here you are, hopelessly devoted to my insufferable self." Ren growled softly, the sound more playful than threatening, and his hands tightened slightly on Mumbo's hips. "Devoted, huh?" he murmured, leaning in so that his nose brushed against Mumbo's. "You sure you're not the one devoted to me?" Mumbo's grin widened, his fingers sliding down to trace the curve of Ren's jaw. "Oh, I am," he said easily, his voice dropping into a low, almost seductive tone. "Hopelessly. Irrevocably." Ren blinked, momentarily thrown by the sincerity in Mumbo's words. His claws flexed slightly, his tail flicking behind him in a telltale display of his nerves. "You don't hold back, do you?" he muttered, his voice rough. "Why would I?" Mumbo asked, tilting his head slightly, his hair falling in soft waves around his face. "You're worth being honest for, Ren." Ren's breath caught in his throat, and for a moment he wasn't sure how to respond. So instead, he leaned in, his lips brushing against Mumbo's in a kiss that was softer than the last, less a declaration and more a quiet affirmation. Mumbo melted into the touch, his hand sliding up to cup Ren's face as he deepened the kiss, letting it linger. The world around them seemed to fade, leaving only the warmth of each other's presence, the rhythm of their shared breaths, and the gentle press of their lips. When they finally parted, Ren's ears were pinned back, his cheeks flushed beneath his fur. Mumbo's grin was softer now, his sharp edges dulled by affection as he pressed his forehead against Ren's. "You're blushing," Mumbo said, his voice teasing but quiet. "I don't blush," Ren growled, though the slight wag of his tail betrayed him. "You do," Mumbo countered, his fingers tracing light circles against the fur of Ren's neck. "And it's adorable." Ren groaned, his hand sliding up to rest on Mumbo's back. "You're impossible," he muttered, though his tone lacked any real bite. "And you love it," Mumbo replied smoothly, earning a low rumble from Ren that sounded suspiciously like agreement. They stood there for a while, wrapped in each other's arms, trading soft words and lingering touches. Mumbo's delicate fingers traced the lines of Ren's scars with a tenderness that made the werewolf's heart ache, while Ren's claws grazed the edges of Mumbo's collar, as if slowly coming to terms with the choice Mumbo had made. "You're not like anyone I've ever met," Ren said after a while, his voice low and thoughtful. "Good," Mumbo replied with a soft laugh, his fingers threading through Ren's hair again. "I'd hate to be forgettable." Ren snorted, his teeth flashing in a rare grin. "Forgettable? Hardly. Just making sure," Mumbo said, his grin mirroring Ren's. Ren leaned down, burying his face in the crook of Mumbo's neck and inhaling deeply. The scent of him, warm and rich with faint hints of smoke and earth, was grounding in a way Ren couldn't explain. He pressed a soft kiss to Mumbo's skin, earning a quiet hum of approval. "You drive me crazy," Ren muttered, his voice muffled against Mumbo's neck. "And yet," Mumbo teased, his hand sliding down to rest on Ren's chest, "you'd still choose me every time, wouldn't you?" Ren pulled back just enough to meet Mumbo's gaze, his golden eyes steady and sure. "Yeah," he said simply, his voice filled with a quiet conviction that made Mumbo's chest tighten. Mumbo's smile softened, and he reached up to brush a strand of hair out of Ren's face. "Good," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because I choose you too." He took a deep, deliberate breath, the scent of Ren's warmth filling his senses. His crimson eyes flickered with an intensity that betrayed the hunger coiled deep within him. Ren remained still, his golden eyes half-lidded as he watched the subtle shift in Mumbo's expression. The shapeshifter's usual playful grin faded, replaced by something raw, something primal. Ren's ears twitched as he felt Mumbo's fingers tighten slightly against his furred shoulder. There was a pause, a moment of silent understanding passing between them, and then Mumbo leaned in closer, his lips brushing against the curve of Ren's neck. The werewolf's pulse thudded steadily beneath his skin, a rhythm that called to Mumbo like a siren's song. Ren tilted his head, baring his neck in a gesture of trust that made Mumbo's chest ache. "Go on," Ren murmured, his voice low and rumbling like distant thunder. Mumbo's fangs unsheathed with a soft, almost inaudible click, sharp and gleaming as they extended from his gums. His breath hitched, his chest rising and falling in anticipation as his lips parted. The world seemed to hold its breath alongside him, the space between them charged with an electric stillness. When Mumbo finally sank his fangs into Ren's neck, it was with the precision of someone who had done this before, but never with someone who meant as much as Ren did. The werewolf's skin gave way easily, his blood rushing to meet Mumbo's bite in a warm coppery flood. Ren tensed for a heartbeat, his claws flexing instinctively, but the tension melted as quickly as it came. A deep, contented growl rumbled through his chest, the sound vibrating against Mumbo's lips. It wasn't a growl of warning but of acceptance, of trust, of something deeper than either of them could put into words. Mumbo's hands tightened their hold on Ren, one gripping his shoulder while the other pressed against his chest, feeling the steady thrum of the werewolf's heart beneath his palm. The taste of Ren's blood was rich, wild and intoxicating, like the forest after a storm, like something ancient and untamed. Ren's tail wagged slowly behind him, his golden eyes slipping shut as he leaned into Mumbo's embrace. The werewolf's breathing slowed, each exhale carrying a soft, satisfied hum. Mumbo's feeding was measured, careful, a far cry from the frantic, desperate hunger he'd felt with others before. With Ren it was different. It was intimate, sacred. Mumbo's fangs stayed buried in Ren's neck for what felt like both an eternity and no time at all. Each draw of blood was deliberate, each second a quiet reminder of the bond they shared. When he finally withdrew, his tongue flicked out to lap at the wounds he'd left, the motion both soothing and possessive. Ren let out a low, pleased growl, his claws grazing lightly over Mumbo's back. "You're always so careful," he murmured, his voice a mix of teasing and genuine appreciation. Mumbo pulled back just enough to meet Ren's gaze, his crimson eyes soft but glowing with the faintest remnants of hunger. "Of course I'm careful," he replied, his voice low and a little breathless. "You're not just anyone, Ren. You're mine." Ren's lips twitched into a small lopsided grin, his golden eyes glinting with warmth. "And you're mine," he rumbled, his tone carrying the weight of an unspoken promise. Mumbo leaned in, pressing his forehead against Ren's, their breaths mingling in the space between them. "Does it hurt?" he asked softly, his fingers tracing the edge of the bite mark. Ren snorted, his tail flicking once in amusement. "Barely. You know I'm tougher than that." "Still," Mumbo murmured, his lips brushing against the spot where his fangs had been. "I don't want to hurt you." "You didn't," Ren assured him, his voice steady. He reached up, his claws grazing Mumbo's jaw as he pulled him closer. "You never do." Mumbo's fanged smile returned, softer this time, as he let himself relax against Ren. The werewolf's arms wrapped around him, holding him steady, grounding him in a way only Ren could. The room was quiet save for the sound of their breathing, the lingering tension from moments before replaced by a deep, bone-deep sense of contentment. Mumbo nuzzled into Ren's neck, his fingers tracing lazy patterns against the werewolf's chest. "You're too good to me," Mumbo whispered, his voice so quiet it was almost swallowed by the night. Ren huffed, pressing a soft kiss to the top of Mumbo's head. "You deserve it," he said simply, his golden eyes closing as he let himself drift in the warmth of their shared space. The quiet between them lingered, heavy with unspoken words yet comfortable in its intimacy. Mumbo stayed nestled against Ren's chest, his breathing steady as his fingers traced lazy circles into the werewolf's fur. Ren's arms remained wrapped firmly around him, holding him close as though letting go would break the fragile perfection of the moment. The warmth of their shared space filled the room, the glow of the low embers in the fireplace casting flickering shadows against the walls. Ren's golden eyes opened briefly, glancing down at Mumbo. His gaze softened at the sight of the shapeshifter so relaxed, his usual sharp features gentled by the quiet glow of contentment. "You know," Ren rumbled, his voice low and thick. You always make things complicated. Mumbo hummed, tilting his head slightly to look up at him, his crimson eyes gleaming with mischief. Complicated? He echoed, his lips quirking into a playful smile. I think I make things interesting. Ren snorted, a sound that was part laugh, part growl. Same thing. Mumbo chuckled softly, his fingers moving to brush against the edge of Ren's jaw. You like it. Admit it. The werewolf's ears flicked back, a faint flush coloring the fur on his cheeks. Maybe, he muttered, his tail swishing lazily behind him. Maybe, Mumbo teased, his smile widening as he shifted to straddle Ren's lap, his hands resting on the werewolf's broad shoulders. Come on, wolf boy. Be honest. Ren raised an eyebrow, his claws gently gripping Mumbo's hips as he settled into the new position. You're awfully bold tonight, he said, his voice carrying a faint growl that made Mumbo shiver. Bold, Mumbo repeated, leaning closer so that their faces were only inches apart. Or just confident. Ren's lips twitched into a smirk, his golden eyes glinting with a playful challenge. Careful, shapeshifter. Confidence can get you into trouble. Trouble? Mumbo asked, tilting his head as though considering the word. I don't know. I think trouble might be worth it. Before Ren could respond, Mumbo leaned in, capturing his lips in a kiss that was slow but insistent, filled with the kind of intensity that made Ren's chest tighten. The werewolf growled softly, his claws digging lightly into Mumbo's waist as he pulled him closer, deepening the kiss. Mumbo's hand slid up to tangle in Ren's hair, tugging just enough to earn a low, approving rumble from the werewolf. The heat between them built steadily, the kiss growing more fervent as they lost themselves in each other. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing heavily, their foreheads pressed together as they tried to steady themselves. Mumbo's grin returned, crooked and full of mischief, as he let his fingers trace the edges of Ren's ears. You're not as scary as you think you are, Mumbo said softly, his voice teasing but affectionate. Ren huffed, his tail wagging slowly. And you're more dangerous than you look, he replied, his claws grazing Mumbo's back in a way that made him shiver. Guess we're a good match then, Mumbo said, his smile softening. Guess so, Ren murmured, his golden eyes holding Mumbo's gaze. They stayed close, their breathing sinking as the tension between them settled into something warmer, more grounded. Mumbo leaned back slightly, his hand sliding down to rest on Ren's chest.